What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Now, I'm going to be breaking this video down pretty much in 4 parts. Part 1, of course, is going to be the opening. Part 2, Jake runs fake story on Larry Hoover. Part 3, Jake's relationship to the streets. And Part 4 would be Jake's robbery story. He left out a lot of details in that robbery, so I'm going to go over that. And also Part 5 would just be the conclusion, to sum it all up. So if you guys want to skip ahead to any part of this video, thanks for watching. Let's get started.
Tell them how we were rocking the Appalachian now. Big 500. You better tell him how we were rocking the Appalachian now. Goose ain't gonna hit him. Goose say get him. I'm gonna kill his ass, man. Stop playing. You already know this shine shit, that stone shit, man. Love and loyalty, bitch. This the stove. This the job. You know what it is. Fucking hoes in the bathroom like it ain't shit. Nigga, get that money, nigga. Y'all tatted up big stupid ass bees out in this bitch, y'all.
So I watched the 1090 Jake video where he basically says here, people have been saying that Larry Hoover told back in the 60s. He actually does the work, goes, finds an article, basically saying that he told on some guy back in the 60s after he got shot or whatever. And so then, I think, wow, that's pretty open and shut that, if you consider somebody a snitch just because they talked to the cops about who shot him 50, 60 years ago, I guess that qualifies him.
Hey, shout out to the person that gassed your dumb ass up. Shout out to them, bro. I don't know who gassed you up, but like I know, like the whole world knows that, boy, you better be walking a tight line. You better never get in trouble again. You better never, ever go to jail or prison again. All that shit you speak about, you better never go around that ballpark again. You might as well just put your country boots on, start singing shit, gone country, oh, look at them boots type shit, and start going to the chili cook-off, brother.
Trying to assassinate Larry Hoover character? Is y'all really serious right now? You playing with Larry Hoover character. The man came out and said Larry Hoover did not tell on him.
They tried to say that Larry Hoover told on me. That he told the police that I shot him. I had to come on Facebook and made it perfectly clear. That man ain't never told on me, but damn, they did the same thing that Daily Box did.
And I'll be damn, a goofy white boy that has nothing to do with nothing. Go come on the internet and play with his name. Larry Hoover told on the man that shot him in 1968. You know how long ago 1968 was? This shit would have been on the net. This shit would have been in the world, man. It would have been on the world. It would have been out here. Why you ain't tell on anything else? What he gonna tell? In high school, I'm a kid. Somebody shot me in my leg.
This piece of information stood out to me because it demonstrated how far into character Jake has gotten. He's not from Tampa at all. He moved to Tampa at 15 years old. And by 18 years old, was in a JIT camp. Also, the area he lived in before he moved to Tampa was not a gang-infested area. That directly refutes his claims of having blood ties before he went to Florida. In the end, we see that Jake was never actually a blood before he moved to Florida, or even in an environment where he could join a gang. He was actually a good kid from a good family that had produced 4 generations of law enforcement officers in the Boston area, from Revere to Malden to Plymouth. It seems as though the breakup between his mom and dad is where things went left. He's then sent to live with his aunt in Tampa, where he's attending school and doing chores around the house. But the Tampa street environment also acted as a magnet for this kid who was clearly having an identity crisis.
It's 1090 Jake, man. I'm rocking with y'all and y'all rocking with me. And for this video, we're going to be speaking on some prehistoric paperwork that hit the internet that I'm not even responsible for. But I fact-checked it. And in this video, we're going to be speaking on Larry Hoover identifying 2 rival gang members to police that shot him.
By now, we have all heard of 1090 Jake's make-believe story of snitching allegations of Larry Hoover, in which 1090 Zebra Cakes took an article from the 1960s that was posted by 1090 Zebra Cakes networking partners, No Jumper, a platform that helps boost 1090's fake gangster identity persona and the stories 1090 runs on its platforms. Such as the case with the Larry Hoover story, Adam22 quickly defended 1090 Jake's after being called out. No Jumper operates as one of 1090 Jake's plugs. By plugs, I mean organizations or partnerships that sells his persona as a G in the game and the official paperwork guy. No Jumper itself operates in the same environment, just as a different function in hip-hop, covering gang beefs, news, rappers, interviews, and No Jumper also covers, rappers, homicides, and stuff like that. Some of us understand that No Jumper, DJ Academics, 1090, and other affiliates are all part of this big networking team in the hip hop community in order to boost one another and keep up the persona they have created online, giving each other more legitimacy, capture audience, and of course, they share in the profits of being one big networking family. I would explain the relationship between 1090 Jakes and the No Jumper as No Jumper being a small store in the neighborhood and 1090 being a product of, let's say, a can of raw fish called 1090 crawfish. No Jumper sells this out of their store. No Jumper knows that the fish ingredients are fake and the 1090 crawfish is just a fake fish produced out of Florida. However, No Jumper sells this fish because it's part of their store brand. Yeah, the fish stinks, ingredients are trash, but the fish is the store's No Jumper's product. So No Jumper has to sell this 1090 nonsense on the No Jumper platform. No Jumper acting as one of 1090's Jake's microphones is a huge push. And with that push, the persona, the authority to say who is real and who's not, keeping it G, and the act seems to the audience to be more legitimate. Legitimacy to the character he has portrayed online. Even No Jumper employees have called out this behavior of No Jumper over promoting 1090 Jakes.
When I seen this, like the first question I had was, yo, are we on like his like payroll?
Wait, what do you got?
No, what?
And Nanny Jake ain't even on the list.
No, it's the Larry Hoover. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, because like I was like, hold on, bro. Like we don't do this for no other YouTuber. Every video he drops, there's a post about it from like No Jumper, right?
Back to the story. 1090 Jakes ran with No Jumper paperwork in an attempt to expose Larry Hoover. The news article in question wasn't written by Larry Hoover, didn't quote Larry Hoover, and the writer, I don't even believe, communicated with Larry Hoover. However, the journalist or so-called journalist at the Chicago Tribune who wrote the story turned to the police for quotes. And to get their information on the events that happened, the police is quoted as the source of information. In journalism, this is called secondary information, not primary information. There is a difference. The article mentioned that 17-year-old Larry Hoover at the time was shot at the Francis W. Parker High School. That was correct. However, the writer never quoted Mr. Hoover. Also, the man that did the shooting himself said, as I played earlier, Larry didn't snitch. And there was multiple witnesses to the shooting, which the article Jake quoted in his video mentioned. And those witnesses, they had one finger in the air and their mouth right next to the police ear as they reported who shot. So Larry Hoover didn't snitch. However, with this bad information as usual, Jake concluded that Larry Hoover is a snitch, and his street credit, well, is now in question. Because Jake is that white blood who picked up his flag in a drive-thru at McDonald's on his way to prison back in the day. Hell, if he would have went to Burger King, he might be identifying as a Latin king by now. Jake spent basically 2 years in prison, was released early, and now he's hardcore. He is now throwing out false allegations, and why? I'll get to that later. I should also mention that in those 2 years of hard so-called time that Jake did, Jake is allegedly to have spent his time in protective custody, trying to pretend that he had suicidal thoughts. And he also was too busy having icy hot fights with some of his friends. Yes, icy hot. I'm talking about the cream or Bengay, whatever kind of fight he was having. But this is what he was doing in his so-called hardcore time in prison for those 2 years.
I mean, 1090 Jake's always trying to make this Florida prison seem like the worst place ever and that it's just like a kill zone. When in fact, it was actually like a really fun time for these guys. They had a lot of fun. It was like summer camp for misled youth. Listen to what they say. Listen.
Yeah. I used to put the Bengay in his eyes, dog. Yeah, bro. Yeah, you took the icy hot. You got the icy hot on both your hands while he was sleeping. And went like this. And he woke up burning. I walk up and put the icy hot in your eyes. Straight up. That used to be some of the funniest shit.
This guy had no problems in jail. He just sat in there. No one fucked with him. He had Bengay. That's what he was attacking people with. Hey, bro, you want to fuck with me? I'll fucking put the icy hot right in your fucking eyes, straight up. And Jake's like, man, that was some of the funnest times I ever had.
Now Jake is online cosplaying gangster paperwork guy who has the authority in his imagination. We are in an era where people can just hop online and pretend to be somebody. Who the hell cares what 1090 Jake has to say? And who made him the authority of the paperwork guy? And whose street credit is in order? Well, I'll tell you who. In my opinion, it's his audience. And his audience is a source of 1090 Jake's so-called gangster status and authority. A gangster status, I believe, is activated when he turns on his computer or iPhone or whatever. But once he click off, his gang status also logs off. 1090 shouldn't be running paperwork with all the snitching allegations he has on him and he's engaged with, which has to bother even the people in his audience. The boy who snitched Jake is not the authority of the Stop Snitching Online movement. Well, apparently he is. Jacob Cherry, aka 1090 Zebra Cakes, snitching allegations include writing statements in prison, writing complaint letters to priests, and of course his biggest job was going on WSVN News and complaining about drug trafficking and prison guards sneaking product into the prison on behalf of gangs. Which, by the way, didn't 1090 Jake say that he was sneaking product into the prisons? So I guess now that he's out, he's going to run to the news station and start complaining about drug trafficking in prison. Isn't that snitching?
How easy is it to get drugs in a Florida prison?
Every single compound I hit, there was all types of drugs on there, whether it's prescription pills, Molly, some spots there was cocaine and meth, but nothing more common than K2.
But sometimes it's the officers bringing the drugs and cell phones inside.
The majority of the drugs that I know of that are coming inside is through the guards. When you're not really making any money and a $30 phone on the street turns into a $1,200 phone inside a prison, a lot of people are gonna do it.
Jakes, in my opinion, makes videos about gangster snitching in order to make a lane for his own snitching allegations. 1090 himself, he's been caught snitching multiple times because I think that his position that he wants to do is if he can get finessed 2 times Larry Hoover, Rick Ross, and other gangsters and rappers to be seen as rats, then 1090 right there, he wouldn't have to worry about his past. So shout out to all the channels that's been really going after 1090 Jakes, really exposing him, like Byron Blake's and Point and Shoot. And I'm glad to see that a lot of people have not been tricked by 1090 Jakes as he put on this whole persona of the stop snitching guy, because he in his past have been snitching as well as the people that he's reporting on. And Jake's so-called connection to the street, in my opinion, is just as real as my connection to the White House. It's a mirage created by himself and the influencers in his network that boost him on the internet as the paperwork checker, street stepper, the legend 1090 Jake. Jake's connection to the street has always been uncertified with no source, which will account for why I still can't get past the whole cornbread incident that he had in prison when a white inmate of 1090s beat 1090 Jake to the point that the guards had to pepper spray the guy off of 1090 Jake. Most importantly is that some random white guy nicknamed Cornbread can just beat you up. I guess your prison gang was all held on the other side of the prison plantation. The fact that this man can just get at you, to me, means there was no consequences to his actions, or he has more black or white friends or in gangs than you, whatever. But 1090, you said you were the biggest white stepper inside of the prison, but you were getting beat by other people, which would refute your claim as the toughest white boy in prison and couldn't be touched. How are you the toughest when Cornbread can just get at you and guards had to remove him off of you? I mean, it's Jake. And according to his audience, definitions change based on whatever story he's telling at the time. So in this story of Jake being the toughest white boy, I guess the word toughest definition would be something like able to get his butt whooped, take L's, take hits, and live to see another day. Also, how can Jake be connected to the streets and yet run to the news station to complain about how gangs are moving product into the prison system? Who's moving the product and what product is being moved? Also, speaking of taking L's, there's one story that 1090 Jake's told on No Jumper. Usually Jake he's detailed about his stories, because he was a World War III survivor inside of the prison, the Florida prison where he survived. He was the biggest stepper. World War III happened in there inside that vacuum. Just look at this thumbnail. Hardcore, right? Warrior, right? Don't mess with this guy. He'll step on you and everything you love. He controlled and ran the prison. However, in a robbery story, when he got out of prison in Florida and went to Boston, the Florida World War III survivor, 1090 Zebra Cakes, online image didn't meet reality. The stepper, let's just say he missed a step. Now, let's listen to that story that he told on No Jumper. Then let's listen to the incident report as I read it out.
Like, I was hungry. Just like I was hungry in prison. We started extorting shit. I was hungry out here, Like, I felt like shit because I got a girl. I can't take her on a date. I can't buy her nothing. So I started looking at all these motherfuckers out here wearing chains and shit. Like, bro, I bet you I can get you to take that off. I don't even got to take it from you. I started running down on people. I ended up catching another case. They said I was chasing somebody with a gun in the back of the building. And,
Was that true? That was true, or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got convicted on that shit and everything.
And what kind of evidence do they have?
Really just him saying it.
Really?
Yeah, none of the cameras had me on nothing. They said I put a gun in his face and, told him to give me a shit, whatever. They hit me with assault with a firearm. SWAT hit my house. They never found a gun or nothing like that. The police. So basically, like, the whole of the situation popped off or whatever. And, from his standpoint, I was in 2 different outfits. A lot of things didn't add up. They were trying to say that I tried to run down on him with the gun first, and he didn't give it up. He did whatever he could do. And then they said I went back inside my shit, switched clothes, and came back out. You know what I mean? So more or less what happened was Buddy had mace on him. I'm not trying to knock brains out just for this little petty shit. You know, the point isn't to fucking hurt nobody. It's to give me the shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I go back in, put the shit up. I'm like, fuck, I'm going to just beat his ass. I done been gassed before. I came back out. He had already called the police.
Wow.
So when I came back out, they ran down on me, put the guns on me, whatever.
So this is the incident report that 1090 Jakes pled guilty to. And I'm going to start from the second paragraph. This happened back in 2016, you know, when he left Florida and went up there to Boston, you know, after serving in World War III in the prison system. He went up there, you know, to Boston and started stepping. And you're going to really see how he was stepping. So I'm going to start from the second paragraph. The victim, Levy, stated to the officers that he met a girl on the dating app Plenty of Fish. The victim stated he made plans to meet the female in the rear parking lot of 610 Dudley Street. Victim stated while awaiting the female in the rear parking lot, an unidentified white male approached him and inquired where he's from. The victim stated he told the male, "I just want to leave," at which time the suspect displayed what was described by the victim as a chrome handgun in the suspect's front waistband and pointed to it, stating to the victim, "You're going to give me all your stuff." While referring to what the victim stated was all his jewelry, please note that the victim was wearing multiple jewelry items to include gold and silver colored necklaces, a watch, and bracelets. The victim stated the suspect began walking alongside of him, and he felt as though the suspect was not going to be dumb enough to use it. That's a quote right there. He decided to run away from the suspect. Victim also stated as he was running away from the victim, I think he was running away from the suspect. The suspect pulled out the chrome handgun and yelled to him, "I'll blow a hole in you." The victim then stated he continued to run away until the suspect stopped chasing him. He then stated he went back to near where the incident took place to retrieve his vehicle, at which time the female he was supposed to meet began to text him telling him to come back. Please note that the victim described the suspect at this point as a white male in his 20s wearing a gray hoodie, dark gray sweatpants, and a gray Jordans, while referring to the suspect's sneakers. The victim stated he returned to the rear of 610 Dudley Street in an attempt to meet the female, at which time he observed the suspect now wearing a red hoodie standing outside the original incident location. So he came back to the scene of the crime where the suspect was still there. 1090 Jake was still there. He further stated that the suspect began chasing after him again, which he now decided to call 911 for police assistance. When asked why he didn't call for help when he initially was safe and away from the suspect the first time, the victim stated, "I'm not scared of these type of situations." The victim was able to provide a possible name for the female that he was going to meet, Tiana, with the phone number you can see right there. He also provided the female Plenty of Fish name as, I have no idea what that is, which the webpage described the female as a 22-year-old black female. The C903 Sergeant Brooks responded to the victim's location and read the victim the witness instructions off a Boston police issued identification process card. The victim was then escorted to the suspect location for the bring back procedure. Please note that the suspect was unhandcuffed, unrestrained, and was placed next to two other Caucasian plainclothes officers of similar height, weight, and body type. The victim was able to positively identify the suspect and stated to the officers during the bring back process, "That looks like the dude," while referring to Mr. Cherry, 1090 Jake. And when asked how certain he was that the person he identified was a suspect, the victim said, "I'm 95% sure that this is him." Officers conducted a search of the area for the handgun described by the victim to no avail. Officers also requested assistance from the TE 517 Warren and his partner, K9 Officer Jake. So there was two Jakes there. Please be advised that no firearms was located at the time. Please be advised that Mr. Cherry was in a company with a Miss Kendra Perkins or whatever of the same address as Mr. Cherry, who fit the description of the female that the victim was supposed to meet in the rear of 610 Dudley Street. So pretty much Jake was he had his girlfriends pretty much setting up, man. He was going on the website, having them invite men to locations where he could rob them at gunpoint. So it's not as he described on No Jumper. He was actually having women set up accounts, lure these men to a location where he was supposed to step on them and take their stuff. But as you can see, he was actually chasing a man down in gray sweatpants, gray hoodie, gray shoes, looking like a gray Eminem. He was chasing him down with a handgun that he wasn't going to use, which I'm glad he didn't use because these men didn't deserve that. They was out there looking for love. Jake was out there looking for a meal, and luckily he didn't step on anything. But this is the incident report. You can read it to yourself if you wanted to. So he wasn't out there stepping on nothing. But plenty of fish websites. That's what he was stepping on. In conclusion, before I get on with that, why is 1090 Jake up here looking like that woman from Orange is the New Black? Jesus Christ. So, in conclusion, I see no reason why 1090 Jakes went after Larry Hoover with the subpar paperwork other than jealousy and or for monetary gains. I would also have to question why No Jumper gave him this garbage information to run with in the first place. 1090 is a gang affiliate in his imagination and online. He is clearly what you see when folks play too much Grand Theft Auto. This image he built is fine. However, when he pretends to act on his imagination in real life is the real problem. That's leading Jake to go down a pathway and gain enemies. And while some rappers have promoted him for their clout, they should remember they live that life. Meanwhile, Jake imitates this life online. The truth is, Jake snitched when he was in prison and when he got out of prison. He spent 2 years in prison, then he was released early, then moved to Boston, where he used his girlfriend in Boston to set up men to be robbed on an online dating site. And he failed at that too. Jake never stepped in prison or out of prison. I read that incident report, and he wants to be involved in the hip hop so bad, he runs this homicide corn content for the popularity and to be in proximity to rappers. His so-called authority should be limited to or not extend past his audience members and rappers who believe this nonsense of Jake past and that he's a street stepper. His audience want an OG, a Scarface, a survivor, a warrior. And I have no issue with that, as long as they turn off their computer and remember where they're at in real life. We have to remember, even undercover cops sometimes forget what side they play for after being undercover for so many years. For all purposes, I do believe Jake suffers and should possibly be diagnosed with alter ego or split personality disorder. And the folks throwing a camera in his face, like No Jumper in the Prison Warrior interview and Bootleg Kev, make the situation no better and helps Jake stay in character and forget reality. I do believe Jake should seek, but not limit himself to, online therapy like BetterHelp. That's my opinion, but I'm not a doctor. I'm just out here calling a duck a duck. Thanks for watching.